beginning, man has struggled ever onward in his conquest of time and space. For countless centuries, lofty mountains mutely challenged him, standing as stalwart barriers across his path. Upon the oceans that surrounded him, he launched his ships. At the mercy of wind and tide, they made slow headway across the waters. Over the lowlands, the wilderness of desert and green valleys, he plodded his weary way, earthbound in the conquest of time and space. But man is no longer earthbound, and Lockheed rides the airways with a thrust of bright propellers and the flash of gleaming wings. And behind this Lockheed lies aviation history. In 1903, on the plains of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, this history began. In the granddaddy of all modern planes, the Wright brothers won immortality by sustaining flight in a heavier-than-air flying machine. There is no fuss or ceremony, no cheering crowds. The motors sputter and catch, weights drop, the ship catapults off the ground into the air for the first flight on record. Since then, aviation history is written in a never-fading book of records. In 1928, a Lockheed Vega, the well-known Yankee Doodle, reaches New York from Los Angeles in 18 hours and 58 minutes. At the controls are Colonel Arthur Goebel and Harry Tucker. In 1929, Captain Frank Hawks climbs aboard his Lockheed to set a new transcontinental mark. Good luck, Captain. New York is only 3,000 miles away. Off on his way to a new record, one of the many he is to establish in the years that follow. Into the cockpit of his Lockheed Sirius climbs Colonel Charles Lindbergh. Mrs. Lindbergh is with him. Flying together, as always, they are heading from Washington, D.C., across the Bering Sea to Japan. A perfect landing after almost half the world has rolled by beneath their wings. Cheers and waving flags as Tokyo greets them. That same year, 1931, Ruth Nichols lands her Lockheed Vega after establishing a new feminine altitude record of 28,743 feet. Nice going, Miss Nichols. 1933, a famous Lockheed, the Winnie Mae, carrying a famous flyer, comes home from a solo flight around the world. What an achievement for Wiley Post. First man to fly around the world alone, and first to fly around the world twice, both times in a Lockheed. Colonel and Mrs. Lindbergh are starting on another and perhaps their greatest journey. A 29,000-mile survey flight from New York to Labrador, Greenland, Iceland, Europe, the Azores, Africa, Brazil, and return to New York. 1934 finds Sir Charles Kingsford Smith, together with Captain P.G. Taylor, completing a 7,000-mile trip from Australia to Oakland, California. It is the first crossing of the Pacific from west to east, and Sir Charles, in his Lockheed Altair, the Lady Southern Cross, has made it in less than 55 hours. This great flyer and great plane certainly deserve congratulations. In 1935, Amelia Earhart flies her Lockheed from Honolulu to Oakland. She is the first woman to make a solo flight over the Pacific, covering the distance in 18 hours, 16 minutes. The crowd hails her for an outstanding performance. 1938, Howard Hughes hurries to his plane for the start of his race around the world. 3 days, 19 hours, and 9 minutes later, his Lockheed brings him back to New York and a new record. In less than 4 days, he saw 5 sunrises, and the plane actually beat the revolution of the Earth on its axis. Records and more records, and these are just part of a long list. But exciting as they are, they mean nothing to the true goal of aviation unless the experience gained is applied to further the speed, safety, and all-round performance of air transportation. And with the cooperation of the pilots who made these famous flights, Lockheed has been able to achieve that performance and create new standards of efficiency. That was true in the development of this Electra, which was Lockheed's first all-metal bimotor transport. It made history on the air lanes of the world, and every subsequent model has lived up to its tradition. Here is the 12. It is a smaller ship, accommodating 6 passengers and answering the proven need for a plane that can combine economy with the performance of a large airliner. This Lodestar is a luxury transport. Certainly one of the best looking, it is today probably the fastest commercial ship on regular airline service. And for the convenience of all customers, service and parts depots have been established throughout the world to maintain the peak performance of Lockheed's vast fleet. And in all corners of the globe, 24 hours of every day, these ships fly the airways in routine flight, confidently accomplishing the jobs for which they were built. The conquerors of time and space. Lockheed over North America. United Airlines, Continental Airlines Incorporated, Mid-Continent Airlines Incorporated, Northwest Airlines, Chicago and Southern Airlines, Braniff Airways Incorporated, National Airlines, Delta Airlines, Boston Maine Airways Incorporated, Trans-Canada Airlines, Pacific Alaska Airways. Lockheed over Central America, Líneas Aéreas Mineras, TACA, Cia Nacional Cubana de Aviación. Lockheed over South America, Pan American Airways Incorporated, KLM, Air France, Avianca, Línea Aeropostal Venezolana. Lockheed over Africa, Air France, Air Afrique, Aéro Maritime, South African Airways, DETA. Lockheed over Europe, British Airways Limited, Aer Lingus Terranta, KLM, LOT, Aeroput, LARES, Romania, Air France. Lockheed over Asia, KLM, KNILM, Japan Air Transport Company Limited. Lockheed over the Antipodes, KNILM, McRobertson Miller Aviation Company, Guinea Airways, Ansett Airways Limited, WR Carpenter Airlines, Union Airways of New Zealand. Lockheeds also serve high government officials of the Netherlands East Indies, Mexico, Venezuela, Brazil, Argentina, Australia, Canada, Great Britain, India, and the United States. Worldwide coverage, but it has not been accomplished in a day. It is the result of a smooth-running combination of men and machines. In that combination lies the story of Lockheed itself. It is a success story, modern, exciting, typically American. The Lockheed Aircraft Corporation plant, Burbank, California, in 1926. And today, the same company, the same location, but quite definitely not the same plant. As recently as 1932, sales aggregated the overwhelming total of $23,298.03. In 1940, actual deliveries amounted to more than $42 million, and conservative estimates indicate that in 1941, this figure will be more than doubled. And to the men of Lockheed belongs a large share of the credit, to their skill and to their loyalty. They are a cross-section of typical American workmen, drillers, riveters, tool makers, die casters, machinists, and technicians. In 1931, there were only 300 of them. 1941, over 35,000. Every man who checks in, from office boy on up, has taken and passed exhaustive tests covering intelligence, temperament, and special aptitude to prove his individual ability. 35,000 American workmen, the right men for the right jobs to build the best planes. This is not a trick shot made with mirrors. It is the drafting room of the engineering department where every new Lockheed has its beginning. A beginning conceived with the purpose of supplying the answer to definite needs of the aviation industry. To attain this goal, over 850 engineers make over 5,000 drawing plans, devoting a total of over 200,000 work hours to their mission of creating one new design. The component parts of a modern airplane's wing, fuselage, and tail surface are almost countless in number, yet every single one of them must be engineered. Even the most minute part receives the greatest attention. 4 separate drawings are made showing detail from 4 different angles. Although the part is no larger than a silver dollar, it will have to go a great deal further. The interior of a plane is one feature of design seldom associated in one's mind as coming under the supervision of the engineer. Yet one of his most important jobs is to provide utter comfort for passengers traveling through the air at high speeds. The Lodestar's cabin has been designed for this comfort. Inside, the sound of powerful motors is reduced to a pleasant hum by scientific soundproofing and vibration control. Restful chairs, ample space, and headroom are results of thoughtful planning, and all Lockheeds are especially adaptable to the requirements of private owners. For businessmen to whom time means money, the Lodestar is convertible into a convenient and dependable office in the sky. The compact 12 becomes a comfortable lounge for attending important events anywhere at any time. The cabin of Lockheed's new four-motor transport, the Excalibur, will look very much like this. Although the plane is still under construction, the engineers have built an exact replica, known as a mock-up, out of wood. In this way, every possible detail of passenger comfort can be effectively predetermined and applied. But the ideas and plans that this man and the hundreds like him put into execution are not only those of Lockheed's chief engineers, but those of the entire flying world. For the Market Research Division maintains close contact with the operative branch of the industry. The staff compiles lists of important features relating to a plane's design. These findings are set up in the form of questionnaires. If you were to build your own ship, on the flight station, where would you locate emergency controls? On the engine control stand, where would you put the levers and the rudder pedals? These comprehensive questionnaires are sent to airline executives, pilots, transport officials in every corner of the world. To Trans-Canada Airlines, R.C. McLeod in South Africa, Tri-American Aviation, Buenos Aires. The list is almost endless, but to mention a few more, American Airlines, Lieutenant Thatch, VP-5 Squadron Canal Zone, and British Airways. The replies to these pamphlets are carefully sorted, for they represent knowledge gained under actual flight conditions. Detailed graphs and charts are compiled by competent statisticians. No suggestion is too small. Every answer to every question is checked and noted. These findings are recorded in another pamphlet. You told us this is the way you would do it. On flight station, on engine control stand. And on rudder pedals, we asked, are brake toe pedals desirable? 93% said yes, 7% no. That verdict is submitted by men whose combined opinions represent the experience of over 16 million hours of flying. These practical viewpoints, as gathered by market research, are submitted to the engineers. They combine these ideas together with their own creative ability in the conception and building of every new Lockheed plane. That's how Lockheed designs airplanes to suit the men who know airplanes best, operators, pilots, and regular airline passengers. And the first form a new plane takes is on paper. From these drawings and thousands like them, an exact scale model known as a wind tunnel model is made and is connected to instruments which determine its flight characteristics. The model is hand-carved, accurate to the fraction of an inch, weighs over 500 pounds, and costs more than $5,000 to build. The door is closed, the wind tunnel sealed. A flip of the switch and the wind propeller whips up to speed. The model is exposed to a far higher velocity than this 90-mile-an-hour wind. The small wind tunnel model is actually subjected to and withstands a much greater force. From an idea to an actuality, from theory to fact, from a model to a completed Lockheed, the plane has been built. More than that, into it has been built the strength, ruggedness, and durability necessary for its safety and high-speed performance. But not so long ago, this shining plane was only a small part of a trainload of metal addressed to Lockheed. For the metal inside these wooden frames is the stuff that planes are made of. Hard and strong, it must be fabricated by men and machines into the parts that make airliners. Giant shears act as huge mechanical scissors. Metal sheets are slipped into place. The sharp blade strikes and cuts through them as if they were cloth. The high-frequency router, a dental patient's nightmare, turns 15,000 revolutions a minute and cuts layers of metal into their first rough shape. The bit turns so fast that it must be cooled by a constant stream of oil. The massive hydro press exerts an overall pressure of 9 million pounds, and it literally squeezes parts out of metal. An endless chain of roller conveyors carries a tray with the forms to workmen. They put the metal which has already been cut to the correct size in place on the forms.